Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show, I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Doctor Who. A great episode, a lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I do like that, once again, a lot of stuff is out of context, but I love that this episode kind of gave us a lot of context for stuff. Obviously, the introduction to Belle's story at the beginning, which, I mean, just the through line of just like, yeah, her all over the place looking for someone, which I think is kind of a beautiful notion in its own right. Like that, basically, it's a story of star-crossed lovers. Essentially, she's trying to find her love across this world, this universe that's been ravaged by the Flux. The fact of the matter is, you have the Daleks, Cybermen, and the Satarans all like mounting up and fighting over what's left. I even love later on, she's like, wait, it's like, because the Cybermen's plan is to basically find whatever's left and turn them into Cybermen. It's like, oh, then what then? It's like, well, then we'll have control of what's left. It's like, wait, so the entirety is just all three of you fighting for what's left. Like, there's literally nothing left in this universe, and still, it's the end of the universe, and you're still fighting. And it's like, well, she's like, in the grand scheme of things, I guess it's okay if you guys go to war, wipe each other out. It's like, man, that's crazy, but they're so caught in their directives and who they are is ingrained. I mean, the Centaurans, they are never-ending warriors. The Daleks want to conquer and exterminate everything except for themselves. The Cybermen kind of want to do the same thing. So when you have three pig-headed species like that are all about death and destruction just at their core, then it's like, what else can you do? But, you know, it's like there's nothing else there. But I even love the Cybermen being like, oh, like love, that's an emotion. That's not a mission, you know? But it's like, yes, like love is the only mission. I mean, love is at the heart of like a lot of things. I mean, to be fair, love is kind of what has started and what has ended wars in a sense, you know, from a very like, yes, it's a very like idealistic and romanticized notion I have, but you know, I'm a romantic at heart. But aside from getting Belle's story, which, side note, if I'm not mistaken, I'm blanking on her name because it's been a while, but I believe she was one of the leads in The Irregulars, that actress, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that's the same actress. But nevertheless, I also love the thing about that when we get to the Doctor, when she's just like, right, like anytime I'm in a room, I always immediately split second try to figure out who's who, figure out like who's got the power, like, you know, what are the chances of my friends dying, and obviously trying to prevent that. Like all that kind of happens all at once in the Doctor's brain, and it's like all it takes is a moment to try and figure out. It's like, right, advice to, you know, jump, you know, and there'll be a net. Granted, that was a metaphorical sense, but it's like, right, I got to take this leap. So she jumps herself and Dan and Vinder and Yaz into the time storm. Like she basically puts herself at the heart of the storm. She lets time funnel through her. Yes, she's a Time Lord. She's lived for a long time. Her biology as a Gallifreyan is just different anyway, so it won't affect her the way it ripped through a human. But also, like, being a Time Lord and just being as old as you are and living as many lives as you have, of course you're gonna, like, it's not gonna affect you the same way it would just a regular person. So for her, it's like, it's her way to make sure everything kind of gets saved. So she sends Dan, Yaz, and Vinder, you know, are basically being swept away in their past. It's basically how she's keeping them hidden while she's connected to the Mori trying to figure this out. But it's not only them that are taking a trip down memory lane, so is she. It took me a while because I obviously like Dan, Vinder, and Yaz are there. So I was like, what? I guess it's because they are all in that time. Well, because like Vinder had it a little bit. Yaz didn't really like. The Doctors had it the worst amongst them in the sense of having like, I guess because it's like, because these memories are like so fragmented and they're so buried so deep that she can't access them, that it took like, it represented these people in the form of something she recognizes. It's like, right, these are the last faces you just saw, Vinder, Yaz, and Dan. So it manifested these particular people in this memory in that form. Because Vinder as well as Dan, their points are just them in the past. But even Yaz is like, well, I guess the initial memory might have been real. But then when she was hanging out with her sister, she's like, but this never happened. And she's like, this can't be my timeline because it's a little weird. Because it seems like because we're finally circling back to it, because we haven't really dealt with it for a little bit, was the Weeping Angel, because it did pop up in the time storm, and even the Doctor's like, wait, why are you here? And so it turns out that particular one is messing with Yaz's time machine because she's like, yeah, like things are a little off. This doesn't make any sense. I even love that, like her sister's like, oh, I want to play video games. So when people see me, they're like, oh, there she is. She's the girl with the nibble fingers. Like, Yaz is like, no one's ever going to say that about you. It's such a weird and very specific thing to say about someone. But I love because Dan, we obviously learn a little bit more about the conversation between him and Diane. We also learn a little bit about him in the sense that like, oh, he was engaged, but like 2 days before they got married, she bailed because she was like, I just, didn't like the thought of spending the rest of her life with him. And even Diane's like, oh, that was brutal. And he was like, we can't go throughout life going without getting a little bruise. I was like, I like that line. I mean, because it's true. Like, there's going to be some hurt and heartache, in general. Like, life is going to bruise you up one way or another. It's just the fact of life, And then we learn Vendor's past about, him getting the position that he got. He was like, serving like the great, Serpent, I think was the dude's name. But basically the guy was like, yeah, we're making a deal that we'll give them what they need. And then they'll give us like, supplies with food and stuff like that will feed like generations and stuff like that. And then there's like, yeah, everyone wins. And he's like, what? And then there's like, I was just trying to, he was like, no, what? You know more than me? He's like, no, I was just in agreement. He's like, I don't need you, a grunt, to agree with me. Because like, oh, you think it's so simple that it's like, he took such an offense to it. But I guess it's like, because I'm so high tier, like, who are you, a measly grunt, to even like acclimate that like, that you understand anything. You don't. You're a lowly grunt. He's like, I'm sorry, sir. He's like, I need you to be a grunt. I need you to record, and I need you to keep your mouth shut. And he's like, right. And partway through the dealings, he had vendors stop the recording. And it turns out that basically it's like, cool, I want 5 of those people brought back to face justice or whatever. But the other 4, they belong to like an opponent. I need that family members, these 4 family members of his, theirs to have it accidents, do whatever you need to. And there's no official record of it because Vendor stopped it. Because I guess it's like, despite his obligations and his position there, he still had to adhere to what the Great Serpent said. So he brought it to his commanding officer about what went down. But it's like, yeah, there will be consequences for this. Have you even talked to your family about it? He's like, no. And it turns out that's why he was in that, like, where we found him at the beginning of this, like, that, like, observatory position. He was banished there because, like, the Great Serpent, he oversees a lot of that type of stuff. So all this, like, it would have eventually, like, it would have gone through him. It has to because it's part of the process. But for him, he was like, I'm just trying to do the right thing. And he let his love, which was Belle, know. Which it turns out Belle and him, like, the little, what was it, pygmy thing that she has? I guess it's like, it's a representation. It's basically a live baby monitor, I guess, while the baby's still inside of you, which was like, because it's like, oh, like, it's like, right, they have a child, you're like, wow. And so she's traveled across like the galaxies, like the universe, to find him despite everything. Once again, star-crossed lovers type of situation, trying to find his way back to her. But it's interesting because, but circling back to the Doctor, because obviously, because she's splintering herself across like Dan's time stream and Vendor's time stream, as well as Yaz's. And I love that she was telling Dan, like, hey, I'm trying to put you in one spot. He's like, yeah, it feels like the world's moving around me. She's like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm trying not to worry you, but I might have done that. Sorry. But yeah, as she's reliving this memory as they're going to Atropos. So it's like, right. So this is kind of potentially where the Swarm and Azure and the Doctor's like battle began. Potentially. It seems like this was the beginning, maybe. Or maybe they had prior, like, crossing of paths. I do love that they had like devices. It's like, all right, time is going to be warped everywhere else, but here with these devices, we're going to be able to move at normal speed while everything else is being affected by time around us. So it turns out we got an answer to what the passenger is. It's not just one thing; it's multiple. Basically, it's a there's a great example of it. It's basically a portable device to hold things. And in each one of these passengers is like millions of people potentially. Like, they have like millions of hostages, but there's like hundreds of thousands in each passenger. And just with one swipe, boom, able to delete like lives just like that. But obviously what the Swarm are chaotic. and that the Swarm and his sister are chaotic. They want to like release time because it's like, and I love that. Like, oh, this is the Division's dirty little secret that, space and time, like, yeah, like space is always going to try, like there's always going to be some entity that's going to try and reign in time, but time is this free and wild and fickle beast that's going to do what it's going to do. But you people have this audacity to believe you know what's best, that you can hold down time. And it's like, I think that's so interesting to know that time is this like entity that it's more chaos than anything, and the only reason why everything is copacetic as it is because the Mori and Astropos stand there to hold it in place. So they want it to run wild. Other than chaos, who knows why? But the Doctor is seeing herself as Ruth again. And it's like, wait, it's like, and she's explaining it to herself, but like, right, this is my memory. Like the reason why I'm here, like this is one of those memories I'm missing that I don't, cause for her, it's like, I can finally get answers, especially the one that when she, and I think that's so fascinating. Dan's at the center of a lot of this too, because when she, like, Dan happened to manifest himself as and part of me wonders, like, for Vinder and Yaz, like, could there be some correlation between the Division members she saw and why she put Yaz and Vinder there? Who knows? Because maybe Yaz is supposed to be representative of someone that she was super close to, because Carvanista, was the one that was Dan. I mean, but they're linked. So that's why I'm like, maybe that's why subconsciously she manifested it like that. So maybe there's a correlation with the other two, or just happenstance. It's just interesting because she recognizes it. She's like, I know that weapon. And she grabs it, and then it reveals itself to be like, oh, Dan, quote unquote, Dan is Carvanista. And it's like, okay, so he definitely knows a lot more, because it's not like, oh, I was aware of you, Dan. It was like, no, I literally worked with you at some point in time, maybe even more than one time, because they called her the boss. So she was probably a pretty, like, high-ranking agent amongst the Division and stuff like that. So that's kind of wild to think about. But obviously, like, they set up this whole plan to get the Mori there. It's like, right, it's like, oh, one of the passengers we slipped in here? Yeah, you should be careful what they hold. They hold the Mori, and the Mori came and bound everything, and, like, bound time. And so they were able to, because, like, right, their punishment for doing what they're doing, it's like, it won't even be death, it'll be erasure. And so it's like, right, everyone's going to forget about your existence. That's why I'm curious, like, why the Doctor got that punishment. Like, did the Doctor do something to deserve that? Like, why she got her memories wiped? I mean, because Carvanista seems like he potentially still has all his memories about the Division. So, like, why was the Doctor in particular had her memories wiped? That's when I'm so curious. I mean, has anyone been keeping an eye on her the entire time, like, Division-wise? I don't know. I'm so curious on that front, but I think it's so fascinating that, obviously the Doctor actually wants to stay, even though the Mori are like, no, you can't do this. Like, despite you being what you are, you cannot survive this. It's like, just one more memory, like, just at least show me the end. Like, what was taken from me was taken from me. I don't understand, because, like, I mean, that's the thing. The Doctor doesn't like not being able to understand. It's the most infuriating thing, because it's like, it's there, especially because these are answers. These are pieces of who you are, because the Doctor's been in free fall for a while of, like, not knowing who she is. And the fact is, it doesn't help that she hasn't confided in Yaz, and because Yaz is like, oh, we're supposed to be buddies, and yet you, like, team, gang, fam, right? And yet you won't confide in me. In fact, you're snapping at me later on because I'm asking too many questions. You didn't like me asking questions before. You definitely don't like me asking questions now, because you don't have the answers. But the Mori are trying to pull her out. She's like, no, you can't stop me. And it's like, yeah, in this moment where it's like, right. In this moment, it's like, yeah, my friends are safer now. It doesn't matter. I need answers. It's like, right, this is supposed to be about helping everyone. I mean, because everything was already set in place. Like, the Mori did what they did to, like, send, like, 4 other Moris to kind of fill that void. It's like, right, you got to send them back in time to make this happen, to kind of fix time and put it back in place. Another thing I really quickly want to add to is where Dan ended up. That guy from, like, the 1800s from Liverpool, like, that guy, he knows something about what's going on too. Like, he's popped up yet again, because Yaz ran into him last episode. Now Dan is running into him, so the Doctor's got to run into him at some point in time. And I'm like, what is his connection to all this? Like, what he was digging up in Liverpool is connected to all of this. So, like, yeah, he's kind of thrown out of time. He seems like he's going a little mad because of everything that's going on. I mean, it's a lot to process, but it seems like he's acclimating in some shape or form. But circling back to it, I think that's so impressive, like, the doctor being selfish in that moment, though. It's kind of what I'm saying, of like, yeah, like, you're so close to answers. This may be your only opportunity, because the only other person related to the division that she can track down, that's potentially still alive, is Carvanista. So it's like, I need answers, especially because this is blatant answers I probably won't get anywhere else. And they try to kick her out, and lo and behold, she ends up somewhere else, and that person knows who she is. It's like, oh, this universe is coming to an end. It's like, wait, what? No, it's like, yes, I get it. You claim yourself to be some hero for this universe you care. Yeah, but it's like, there's tons and tons of life forms, but it's like, nothing lasts forever, Doctor. Not even you. I mean, to be fair, the Doctor wasn't supposed to last anyway, because the Doctor was supposed to only have like 12 regenerations, and last regeneration was supposed to be the last regeneration, but lo and behold. No, actually, wasn't 11? Yeah, 11 was actually supposed to be the final. Yeah, 11 was supposed to be the final life, wasn't it? And then, like, found a loophole around it, but then you also add in the fact is, well, the Doctor's not who you think the Doctor is. I think that speaks volumes that, like, they did that on purpose, like, making, like, Ruth be the form that the Doctor took back then. I wonder, like, during a lot of her time with the Division we know that's not the case. Like, some of her time with the Division, she didn't look like that. But I wonder was, like, a lot of her heavy lifting work, a lot of, like, some of the more, like, like, a lot of her major memories might be tied to that particular form. Maybe that's why just because obviously we've gotten introduced to the Doctor looking like that. So it's like, there's that significance, but also, because I think they're going to be using that a little bit more going forward. Probably, hopefully, I've always been hoping that they would do a lot more with that. So I think we'll be seeing that version of the Doctor a lot more. But I'm also curious, like I said, like, is a lot of her major memories associated with the Division, pertaining to that form. So we'll have to wait and see. But this person, I don't know whether they're an, like, outside arbiter to this, like, whoever it is that the Doctor encountered. Because she's like, who are you? And, like, I'm not understanding. Because it turns out this was all meant to happen. Like, oh, Tom was supposed to, like, get free for a little bit. They're like, run around. It's like, what? It's like, everything here is probably, like, predetermined. It's supposed to happen. The flux was supposed to do some damage, but it wouldn't be enough on its own. So they wanted it to affect the planet Time so that Time could, like, run rampant, even if just a little bit escape. And that's because obviously it's having, even for the time it was released, it's having massive implications across the universe, because time is falling apart to the point, like, the day and night cycle is, like, wild. There are, like, those particles that Dan ran into, that Bell ran into. They're apparently, like, time force particles that basically devour and destroy anything it touches. So they're representative of, like, a byproduct of time being released for as long, like, allowed to run free as remnants of it. But it turns out, the flux isn't some natural occurrence. It was made. Someone released it. And it's like, why? Because of you. Like, so it's like, wait, all of this is because of the Doctor? Is this because of the Division related stuff? Because the Doctor's asking too many questions about her past? Is it that she's caused too much change and effect? She's had too much of a ripple effect again, even though that's the whole thing of, like, trying not to have any ripple effects. Like, she's had too much of a ripple effect across too many life forms and too many lives across too much time. It's like, you need to be stopped. Like, because it's like, right, they've got to figure out about who released the flux and what it has to do with her, which Yaz was like, why would it have anything to do with you? She's like, this ain't the time asking questions, go, go, go. Like, she's snapping at Yaz because Yaz is, not really snapping, but she's being very dismissive. And once again, this is supposed to be your buddy and you're not telling her anything. Obviously, we find out that Diane is being held hostage in one of the passengers. And so the swarm, it's like, what do you want to do? And he was like, reign in hell. So I guess, like, turn this, like, universe into hell in this galaxy, I guess, and reign there. Who knows? But what they're, like, why they're doing what they're doing, was that the Doctor and the swarm? Well, it doesn't seem like, because, like, the way the swarm was like, we've had battle after battle, that was the last one until now. So it's like they had definitely had run-ins over the course of things in the past, but now it's like, right, takes Vendor home, but Vendor, his home is gone, And obviously for him, he's got to go look for his love, which I love that I love that he peeks into the door, which the door's still moving. He's like, hey, is this a TARDIS? He's like, I didn't think these things actually existed. They thought they were a myth. So he's like, oh, do I get the pilot? She's like, no, just get inside. But they drop him off and it's like, right, here at Zero, if you ever need us, we'll come pick you up. So he's got to try and find Belle while Belle's looking for him. And Yaz hasn't escaped the Weeping Angel. It's been following Yaz. Like, why did it lock onto Yaz specifically, I'm wondering. But then all of a sudden, like, the Doctor's like, oh, it's a Weeping Angel. Once again, this is all their experience, first encounter with one. So it's like, right, do not blink. And then it ends up taking control of the TARDIS, which, once again, it's always wild when the Weeping Angel, so this one in particular has like a scar across his face. Because like, I remember there was the earlier, I forgot what season that was. Like, wasn't that like 6 or 7, where there was a particular I think it was the Weeping Angels, and it was maybe not all of them, but just some of them. I feel like it was a season 6, maybe it was definitely like a 11 situation of Matt Smith, Amy, Rory type of thing. I think it had specifically dealt with the crack in the wall. But what I was bringing up was like the Weeping Angel in that particular time. Like I want to say it was multiple ones. They didn't have the energy to zap people to different times. All they could do is grab people and kill them, killing them immediately. It's like, oh, we're bypassing the whole like merciful death of like sending you to a time, and whatever time you would have lived, I absorb and eat and feast, and that's how I survive. It didn't have the strength to do that anymore, so they would just grab people, snap their necks, and kill them. That's just how they feasted at that point. So but it's like, other than that, we don't typically see the Weeping Angels act weirdly. We never got a conclusion to it, but they were setting the Weeping Angels up to be the center force of everything that was going on during class. So I guess maybe they're bringing that back in some shape or form. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe, because I was always wondering if we'd get a conclusion to that story in Doctor Who in some shape or form, since we never were able to get it during the show itself. But maybe this has ties to that at the heart of, maybe, once again, you get answers for one thing, a whole other bunch of questions pop up. So this thing now has access to the TARDIS, which are like a thing that feeds off of time the way it does, getting access to the TARDIS. Where's it going to go? Where's it going to take them? It's definitely going to be really interesting to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. I don't think I might have clarified this on a different part, but I did get an answer that, yeah, the Flux is a 6-parter, and that is the entire season. So like this entire 13th season is like a mini arc, kind of almost movie type of thing. So just like how Sherlock's seasons are like only like 2 or 3 episodes, but like each episode's like 80-some minutes long. I think it's kind of something in that vein. But regardless, I'm excited to see where the next episode takes us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.